She was tortured and murked on camera by 8 of her trusted friends. Watch who you know what I'm saying, the company you keep. If you don't know me, I'm Alice Virgo. This is my second channel where we react to. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts. Let's get straight into it.
In February of 2024, Jackson was tortured, raped, and murdered.
February 25th,
Huh? I didn't know she was.
2024, a mother received a text message that would haunt her forever. Send the police at 3 held hostage, don't call. The message came from her 20-year-old daughter, Mahogany Jackson, who was trapped inside a Birmingham apartment fighting for her life. But here's what makes this case so shocking. The 8 people torturing Mahogany weren't strangers who broke into her home. They weren't random criminals who snatched her off the street. These were people she knew, people she trusted, people she considered friends. For over 30 hours, they held her captive, moving her from place to place across Birmingham. They beat her, assaulted her, and filmed every horrific moment. And when Mahogany finally managed to send that desperate plea for help, they discovered her secret message. This girl was hurt by people she trusted. Have you ever trusted someone who turned out to be dangerous? Because what happened next will show you just how deadly that mistake can be. This was when the worst began. This is the story of Mahogany Jackson. Welcome to our channel. Please like this. February 2024. Born and raised in Jasper, Alabama, she had moved to Birmingham with big dreams and an even bigger heart. Her world revolved around her 3-year-old daughter, Nydia, who was the light of her life. She loved the color pink and had dreams of becoming a cosmetologist. She wanted to build a better future for herself and her little girl. Like many young mothers, she was working hard to leave behind the mistakes of her past and create something beautiful for her family. But Birmingham's streets can be dangerous, especially when you're trying to distance yourself from the wrong crowd. Mahogany had been making an effort to change her life, but some connections from her past weren't ready to let her go. In the weeks leading up to her death, Mahogany had been dealing with a serious problem. Someone had stolen a gun from her, and she knew exactly who had taken it. This wasn't just about a missing weapon. It was about respect, trust, and standing up for herself in a world where showing weakness could be deadly. On February 24th, 2024, Mahogany made a decision that would cost her everything. She decided to confront the person who had stolen from her. She wanted her property back, and she was willing to face the thief directly to get it. What Mahogany didn't know was that this confrontation would trigger a chain of events so brutal and shocking that even experienced police officers would struggle to process what happened. The person she was about to confront had friends. Dangerous friends who would turn a simple dispute into one of the most horrific crimes Birmingham had ever seen. On February 24th, Mahogany Jackson walked into what she thought would be a simple confrontation. She had tracked down 24-year-old Brandon Pope, the man who had stolen her gun. This wasn't some random criminal. Brandon was part of her social circle, someone she knew from the streets of Birmingham. Mahogany wasn't playing games that day. She was armed and ready to get her property back. When she found Brandon, she didn't waste time with small talk. She pulled out her own weapon and demanded he return what he had stolen from her. But Mahogany wanted to send a message. This wasn't just about getting her gun back. It was about respect. In front of his friends, she forced Brandon to strip down to his underwear at gunpoint. For a man trying to maintain his reputation on the streets, this was the ultimate humiliation.
Oh no. Fuck. Yeah. I understand why I understand why she did what she did, but also what's coming up after this, then I can understand why that happened too then. I'm not saying she was wrong at all, especially if somebody stole your shit, but like just damn. Is the moment he said strip down to I already knew where this was going.
Humiliation. Brandon stood there, nearly naked, while Mahogany held him at gunpoint. His friends watched as this young woman made him look weak and powerless. In that moment, something dangerous shifted in the room. The embarrassment was eating at Brandon, and his anger was building to a breaking point. After Mahogany got what she came for, she left. She probably thought the matter was settled. She had her gun back, she had made her point, and Brandon had learned not to steal from her again. But she was wrong. The humiliation Brandon felt that day wouldn't just disappear.
There's nothing more dangerous than a humiliated person. There's nothing more dangerous than an embarrassed person. Especially whenever people are egging on and laughing at and chastising that embarrassed person for not acting in a certain way. There's nothing more dangerous than somebody like that.
As soon as Mahogany was gone, his rage took over. The fact that a woman had embarrassed him in front of his crew was something he couldn't let slide. In his mind, there had to be consequences. That's when Brandon made a decision that would turn a simple theft dispute into a nightmare. He looked at his friends, Francis Harris, Jeremiah McDowell, and the others who had witnessed his shame, and gave them a command that would seal Mahogany's fate. Do something to her, he told them. Those 4 words would launch one of the most brutal crimes Birmingham had ever seen. What started as Mahogany trying to get her stolen property back was about to become a 30-hour torture session that would end with her death. And the worst part? Every single person involved in what happened next was someone she knew and trusted. Brandon Pope's command set everything in motion. Within hours of being humiliated, he had gathered a group of 8 people who were ready to make Mahogany pay for what she had done. These weren't hardened criminals.
You got 8 people? You couldn't do it yourself? You couldn't do it yourself? You got 8 people for one girl?
Or gang
One
members.
woman?
They were people from Mahogany's own social circle, people she had laughed with, hung out with, and trusted. The group included Francis Harris, 25, Jeremiah McDowell, 18, Giovanni Clapp, 23, Blair Green, 25.
These are grown folks. These aren't people who are like besides the 18-year-old, but these are like grown men and grown women too. These aren't just like kids. You know, kids, they make it seem like it's normally kids who do dumb stuff like this. No, this is grown adults. These are adult mind people.
Zinnia McCall, 23, Taja Lewis,
You're too old
26,
for this
and
shit.
Ariana Robinson, 23. Some were men, some were women, some were older, some were barely adults. But they all had one thing in common. They were about to commit one of the most horrific crimes Birmingham had ever seen. They found Mahogany and took her captive. What happened next would last for more than 30 hours and move across multiple locations throughout Birmingham. The group wasn't just angry. They were methodical. They planned to make Mahogany suffer for as long as possible. They moved her from place to place to avoid being caught. First one apartment, then another location, then another. Each time they relocated, the abuse continued. They beat her repeatedly, leaving her body broken and bruised. They sexually assaulted her in ways that police would later describe as beyond comprehension. But the physical abuse was only part of the horror. They also tortured her mentally, telling her she was going to die, making her beg for her life, and giving her false hope that they might let her go if she cooperated. They forced her to endure humiliation after humiliation, breaking down her spirit piece by piece. Perhaps the most shocking part of this entire crime was that they filmed it.
Yeah.
Multiple members of the group took out their phones.
Bro. I just can't like understand how a human would treat another human being like that.
And recorded what they were doing to Mahogany. They documented their own crimes, creating evidence that would later be used to convict them. Police Chief Scott Thurmond would later say that the suspect's decision to videotape portions of this horrific act made the facts of the case public.
Saddest of all, they were made public by the suspect's decision to videotape portions of this horrific act.
These weren't people trying to hide their crimes. They were proud of what they were doing. They wanted to remember it. They wanted to show others. As the hours passed, the abuse got worse. What started as revenge for Brandon's humiliation had turned into something much darker. The group fed off each other's energy, each person trying to outdo the others in terms of cruelty. Mahogany was no longer a person to them. She had become an object for their rage and violence. For more than a day, Mahogany endured torture that most people couldn't survive. She was beaten, assaulted, moved from location to location, and forced to endure psychological abuse that was designed to break her completely. Through it all, she held on to hope that somehow, someway, she might make it out alive. The group showed no mercy, even when Mahogany begged for her life, even when she promised she wouldn't tell anyone what happened, even when she pleaded with them to think about her 3-year-old daughter who needed her mother. They continued the
I just hate too that you can't embarrass people. Like I get it, they stole your gun, but like, why she ain't called the police? Like, why did she make him strip down? Why did she make him strip down like that? That's the last thing you do to a dude. That's the last thing you. But I get it too. They stole her shit, so like she felt like I gotta make a name for myself and let people know I'm not one of them ones. But like, there's just no way she made the nigga strip down and just thought she was gonna walk away and that was it, and nothing else would ever happen. Call the cops, y'all. Yo, I don't care if people call you a snitch or if people say you're not. Yo, just call the cops, man. Let the police handle it. Let the police handle it. And if somebody else got something to say about you or somebody else threatened you over calling the cops, you call the cops on them too. Hey, I'll tell you one thing. People may not be scared of you or they may not be scared of a gun, but they is scared of that badge. How many killers have we seen blatantly kill people, but as soon as them cops come, they bitch up. As soon as them cops come, they don't shoot at them cops. So, you know what I'm saying? Call the police, bro.
abuse. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt unsafe but didn't know how to get out?
Yes.
The warning signs were probably there, but
You don't know what
sometimes we ignore them.
Bro, you don't know what to do. You're kind of just like trapped and I tell you one thing, you have to think very fast in a situation where I felt not safe at all. You have to think very fast. I was high too, but I sobered up quick enough to, but you have to think very fast. You can't let people know that you're thinking. You can't let the people that you're trying to get away from know that you're trying to get away from them, but you somehow still have to try to get away from them. Yeah, that's a very scary situation. And I've been in that in a certain instant, but not to this point where I'm actively getting beat on and stuff. Yeah, man, I just wish you would have called the cops, bro. You got a 3-year-old daughter.
Because we trust the wrong people.
Like, you can't be. It's not to absolve them of their crimes at all because they weren't justified in this at all. They stole her property first, but like, I'm not finna have a 3-year-old daughter that I'm with all the time or like a kid and trying to play gangster or trying to be a certain way, like hard. Because what comes with being hard is you always have to be on guard for people retaliating. And if somebody retaliates on me, that means they'll also retaliate on my family, which means my children. So that would stop. Like I said, I would just call the police. I would just call the police. You may fuck with me, but I know you won't fuck with the police. So I just call the police. No cap.
Mahogany's story shows us just how quickly people we know can turn dangerous. But Mahogany wasn't ready to give up. Even after hours of torture, she was still looking for a way to survive. And on the morning of February 25th, she would find one last chance to call for help. At 7:46 a.m. on February 25th, Mahogany saw her chance. After more than 24 hours of torture, her captors had let their guard down for just a moment. She grabbed her phone and typed the most important message of her life. Send the police app 3 held hostage, don't call. She hit send and prayed her mother would see it in time. This was her last hope, her final attempt to save her own life. Back home, Mahogany's mother Gail was going about her morning when her phone buzzed. When she read the message, her world stopped. Her daughter was in danger, and she needed help immediately. Gail didn't hesitate. She called 911 right away. The police rushed to the Serenity Apartments on Serenity Drive, where Mahogany's message had indicated she was being held. Officers raced up the stairs to apartment 3, ready to rescue a young mother who was fighting for her life. But when they broke down the door, the apartment was empty. There was no sign of Mahogany or her captors.
Fuck, bro. Bro, my heart's racing, bro. I know we've read the title already, and the title already says what it says, but there's part of me who's still hoping that she made it out. You know what I'm saying?
The group had already moved her to another location, staying one step ahead of law enforcement. Meanwhile, Mahogany's captors had discovered what she had done. They found the text message she had sent to her mother, and their anger reached a new level. Not only had she embarrassed Brandon Pope, but now she had tried to bring the police into their business. But instead of killing her immediately, they saw an opportunity. They forced Mahogany to unlock her phone by giving them her passcode. They wanted access to her contacts, her messages, and her social media accounts. They told her that if she cooperated and gave them what they wanted, they would let her live. "Give us the password and we'll let you go," they promised her. Mahogany, desperate to survive and get back to her 3-year-old daughter, gave them the information they demanded. She probably believed that cooperation was her only chance of making it out alive. She had already endured more than 24 hours of torture. Maybe if she
24
just did what
hours?
they asked,
And you know they didn't let her eat either.
this nightmare
She
would
was dehydrated. She was hungry. She was beaten.
finally end. But this was just
Literally
another
on her
lie
final-
in a long series of lies. The group had no intention of letting Mahogany go. They had already decided her fate, and her desperate attempt to call for help had only sealed it. The text message that was supposed to save her life had instead guaranteed her death. After Mahogany gave them her phone password, the group made their final decision. Despite their promise to let her live, they had been lying all along. Frances Harris, the 25-year-old who would later be identified as the shooter, took charge of what happened next. The group loaded Mahogany into a vehicle and drove her to a remote area in Birmingham. This wasn't a random location. They had chosen a spot where they thought no one would find her body. It was isolated, away from busy streets and curious eyes. When they reached the dump site, Mahogany probably still believed she might survive. She had given them everything they asked for. She had cooperated completely. She had endured more than 30 hours of torture without fighting back. Maybe, just maybe, they would keep their word. But Frances Harris had other plans. As Mahogany stood at that remote location, probably hoping this nightmare was finally over, Harris raised his gun and shot her in the back of the head. The execution was quick and cold. After everything she had survived, after all the hope she had held on to, Mahogany Jackson's life ended with a single gunshot. The group didn't just leave her body there. They tried to hide what they had done by covering her with old mattresses and debris, treating her like garbage instead of the young mother she was. They thought they could make her disappear completely, as if she had never existed. For hours, Mahogany's body lay hidden in that remote area while her family desperately searched for answers. Her mother, Gail, was still hoping the police would find her daughter alive. Her 3-year-old daughter, Nydia, was waiting for her mommy to come home, but on February 26th, their worst fears became reality. A witness walking through the area discovered something that didn't belong. When they moved the mattresses aside, they found Mahogany's body. The young mother who had fought so hard to survive was finally found, but it was too late. This discovery of Mahogany's body set off a chain reaction that would bring swift justice. The Birmingham community was outraged by what had happened to this young mother.
Kill them all. Yeah, kill them all.
Tips started pouring in to police.
Kill all of them. Give them life sentences. Give some of them the chair, some of them the needle, and everything they did to her should happen to them in jail.
With people providing information about who might be responsible. Within days, law enforcement had identified all 8 suspects. The same videos that the group had filmed to document their crimes became the evidence that would convict them. Their decision to record their own brutality had created a trail that led police directly to their doors. One by one, the arrests began. The people who thought they had gotten away with murder were about to learn that justice was coming for them. The 8 people who destroyed Mahogany Jackson's life weren't career criminals or hardened killers. They were young adults from Birmingham, ranging in age from 18 to 26. Most shocking of all, they were people Mahogany knew and trusted. What made this case so easy to solve was the evidence the suspects created themselves. Police Chief Scott Thurman called their decision to videotape portions of the crime the saddest part of the entire case. These videos didn't just show what happened to Mahogany, they showed exactly who was responsible. The footage was so disturbing that Chief Thurman, a veteran law enforcement officer, called it one of the most heinous acts he had seen in his career. He described the facts as deplorable and sickening and said the crime was absolutely disgusting.
The facts of this case are deplorable and sickening. Saddest of all, they were made public by the suspect's decision to videotape portions of this horrific act.
I've recently come to
I'm just like, just call the police, y'all. Please call the police. Shit, why did she have to go? Just why did she have to go and make this nigga strip? Why did she have to do that? You don't embarrass nigga. If she was gonna do that, she should have known that what was gonna follow after that was that she was always gonna have to be on guard. Because it's like you getting in a fight with certain types of niggas and completely destroying them and beating their ass in front of the whole school. That's just not the. For some, yeah, they may just fall back, but for the wrong type of nigga with the wrong type of anger issues and embarrassment and confidence issues, you can expect that nigga to come back out of nowhere wanting to shoot at you or fight you again or kill whatever. I just wish if she would have, like, if she was gonna do the whole strip thing, like, she should have accepted the fact that somebody was probably gonna come back and try to retaliate some way or another. And maybe she did. Maybe they all 8 of them put up. We don't really know what happened. They didn't explain it, but like, if you're gonna do something like that, you have to. Oh man, that's so fucked up, bro.
When the arrest began, the charges were serious. Brandon Pope, Francis Harris, and Jeremiah McDowell were each charged with capital murder during first-degree kidnapping and capital murder during first-degree
Yeah, they're in
sodomy.
jail for life.
These
pretty much.
charges carry the possibility of the death penalty in Alabama. Giovanni Clapp, Blair Green, and Senia McCall face charges of felony murder, first-degree kidnapping, and first-degree sodomy. Tasia Lewis was charged with felony murder, while Ariana Robinson was charged with felony murder in connection with kidnapping. All 8 suspects were denied bond, meaning they would remain in jail while awaiting trial. But as the case moved through the court system, some changes occurred. During a preliminary hearing, the capital murder charges based on rape and sodomy against Pope and McDowell were dismissed. McDowell's attorney, Glennon Threat, argued that his client maintained his innocence and claimed the state had been overcharging the defendants. Additionally, Clapp's assault charge was reduced from second-degree to third-degree assault. These legal developments showed how the justice system works. Initial charges don't always stick, as prosecutors review evidence and build their cases. Despite these modifications, all
still
8
was guilty.
suspects still face serious charges that could result in life in prison or even the death penalty. The core charges of capital murder and felony murder remain in place for the group. The case moved quickly through the system because the evidence was overwhelming. The suspects had essentially convicted themselves by filming their crimes. There was no question about who was responsible or what had happened to Mahogany. As the legal proceedings continue, Mahogany's family waits for justice. Her mother, Gail, and her 3-year-old daughter, Nydia, will never get Mahogany back, but they hope the courts will hold these 8 people accountable.
You know, this reminds me too of how valuable life is. Like, if you lose some money, you can get it back. You lose like a car, you can get it back, or you can get it fixed, right? But like taking a life and watching the life lose its body, you can never, no amount of money can ever, you can't get that back. You can't, like, there's nothing you can do for that. Or time. You spend your time as a child. Your time is even right now. Today is the youngest you'll ever be. You'll never get today or this second back. And there's nothing you can do to get it back. Nothing. Like that's the set in stone rules of life. Which is why I don't get how people just casually waste time. I don't get how people just casually take people's lives. Like you can never get those things back.
For destroying their family. The real victims of this crime weren't just Mahogany. They were the people she left behind. Her 3-year-old daughter Nydia lost the most important person in her world. At such a young age, she couldn't understand why her mommy wasn't coming home anymore. The little girl who used to play with Mahogany, who depended on her for everything, was now facing a future without her mother's love and protection. Mahogany's mother, Gail, was living every parent's worst nightmare. She had received that desperate text message from her daughter asking for help, and despite calling police immediately, she couldn't save her. The guilt and grief of losing a child in such a brutal way was almost too much to bear. Gail had to find the strength to not only deal with her own pain, but also help her granddaughter understand why Mommy was never coming back. The Birmingham community was shocked by the brutality of Mahogany's murder. People who had never met her felt connected to her story. A young mother trying to build a better life for her daughter, only to be betrayed by people she trusted. Vigils were held in her memory, and community members demanded justice for what had happened. The most disturbing aspect of the aftermath was learning about the videos. The fact that 8 people had filmed themselves torturing and murdering Mahogany showed a level of cruelty that was hard to comprehend. These weren't people who lost control in a moment of anger.
Bro, it's one thing to do this really quick, but you did this for a whole day. This is torture. This is sadistic. This is satanic.
They had planned, documented, and celebrated their crimes. But those same videos that showed their lack of humanity also became the key to justice. Every piece of footage they recorded became evidence against them. Their decision to document their crimes had created an undeniable record of what they had done. In trying to preserve their moment of power over Mahogany, they had actually preserved the evidence that would convict them. Mahogany Jackson's story teaches us painful but important lessons about trust, safety, and the people we allow into our lives. The most shocking part of this case wasn't just the brutality. It was the fact that every single person who hurt her was someone she knew. This wasn't a random attack by strangers. These were people from her social circle, people she had spent time with, people she probably laughed with and trusted. The betrayal was as devastating as the violence itself. It shows us that sometimes the most dangerous people in our lives are the ones closest to us. There were warning signs that could have saved Mahogany's life. When someone steals from you, that's already a red flag about their character. When people around you solve problems with violence and humiliation, that's another warning sign. When your social circle includes people who get angry over respect and reputation, you might be in danger. Technology played a double role in this case. Mahogany's phone became her lifeline when she sent that desperate text to her mother. It was her last hope for survival. But that same technology was used against her when her captors forced her to give up her password. And the phones that the killers used to record their crimes became the evidence that convicted them. We all have a responsibility to speak up when we see dangerous situations. If you know someone is being threatened, if you hear people talking about hurting others, if you see warning signs of violence, don't stay silent. Mahogany's story shows us what can happen when toxic behavior goes unchecked. Mahogany Jackson should be alive today.
Yeah.
She should be watching her daughter Nydia grow up, pursuing her dreams of becoming a cosmetologist and building the better life she was working toward. Instead, her life was cut short by people who chose violence over humanity. Her story reminds us that behind every true crime case is a real person with real dreams, real family, and real love to give. Mahogany wasn't just a victim. She was a mother who adored her daughter, a young woman with plans for the future, and someone who deserved so much better than what happened to her. We can honor Mahogany's memory by learning from her story, by paying attention to warning signs in our own lives, by speaking up when we see dangerous situations, by choosing to walk away from toxic people instead of confronting them, by supporting survivors of violence in our communities. What prevention strategies do you think could help others avoid similar tragedies?
I say call the cops. I think she would still be alive today if she called the cops. I think if she would have, she know who stole her gun. She figured it out. If she would have called the cops, they would have searched and took the gun from bro. I also think by her calling the cops on them, that sets a certain tone that, hey, if we kill you, since you just called the cops on us and we killed you for calling the cops on us, we know the cops we're going to be the first people they look at. So, they would have been less incentivized to kill you. Or it was just forget about the gun as a whole. And I assume that wasn't an option for her, because for somebody to just steal from you and you to not check it, that's like they might do it again. So I would have said just report it, call the cops, get out of town if you got to afterwards, or you know, call the cops, bruh. But I knew as soon as they said that she made bro strip, I knew even if I didn't know what the title was about, I knew exactly where this was going, because people do so many things not only out of embarrassment but to avoid embarrassment. I mean, how many dudes fight at school? How many dudes dress certain ways, talk certain ways? Even women, just human. How many humans in general do things to an extreme that they don't even want to do just to avoid embarrassment or just so they're not looked at a certain way? Embarrassment is one of the strongest emotions to people because it influences and it forces the hands of so many people to do so many horrific things they wouldn't do on their own thinking. So I knew the moment that they said she put a gun on him in front of all those people and made him strip, I knew exactly you just can't do that to somebody and expect them to not do anything back to you. Even if they did something to you, you can't do that to somebody, especially in front of other people, just in general, especially not a man. As a woman, you can't do something like that and just expect them to like let you go about your rest of your life and act like nothing happened. Like, I saw that coming from a mile away. I wish she would have, and I wish she would have just called the cops. I'd say call the cops in situations like this. You know what I'm saying? Um, yeah, and I agree too. Don't pull a gun if you don't plan on using it. Yeah, but to be fair, what was she supposed to do? Go in the house as a woman to a grown man and be like, "Yeah, give me my gun back," and she thought he was just gonna listen. She kind of had to get an edge, and the gun was an edge. But again, too, yeah, if you're gonna pull a gun, you gotta expect to use it. So it would have been better to just call the cops. I say just call the cops, y'all. Call the cops. That's your best. Yeah.